Hello, hello everyone! I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today we are going to talk about how I illustrate my books. First and foremost, y'all, I am an author. That is my number one passion, priority, raison d'etre in life, all that jazz. However, at a very close second, I'm also an artist. I personally specialize in digital drawings and acrylic paintings. However, in the past, I also used to very heavily use colored pencils and watercolor paint. I have been writing since I was basically 3 years old, making up my little stories in my head, telling them to myself out loud, all that jazz. And for just about as long, I have also been experimenting with art and different art mediums because, especially when I was a little kid, I thought that books and art just went together like this. I thought that you always had to have pictures to go with your story because a lot of the books that I read growing up, of course, were the little kid picture books. Of course, they have pictures in them. But I also read a lot of the older classics, especially British classics, where they have those wood block print illustrations in their books. So even with Big People chapter books and all that stuff, even those books had pictures in them. So I thought that was a huge part of being an author, is that little kid me. It didn't even occur to me that different people would write the story and do the illustrations, even though there are people that do both. I mean, I'm not special in that regard. There are people that do both. It's just very rare to find that. So, I mean, I guess technically I'm special, but I'm not the only person ever or anything like that. But I truly thought that that was part of being an author, was that you also had to draw your own pictures. I have basically been developing my writing and my art at the same pace my whole life. Now, I will tell people my writing skills are like through the roof, y'all, just way up here, whereas my art is like, I would say, above average, and that's mainly due to tons and tons and tons of practice. I personally do not believe I am like super inherently talented at art. Like, I hit all of the typical drawing milestones. Growing up, I was not exceptional at art in any sense of the word. The only reason why my art is where it is now is because I have spent literally decades learning how to draw, practicing drawing, learning how to paint, practicing painting, having formal education in fine art. All of that jazz is why my art skills are the way they are. I truly believe if I didn't have all the practice that I've had, if I didn't have the formal education that I had, my artwork would pretty much suck. I'm pretty sure it would pretty much suck in terms of any sort of professional standards. My writing is definitely my core talent, but art has always also been a huge passion of mine. And a big part of that is, even after I found out that most authors don't put illustrations in their stories, and that, number one, most authors are not also artists, but also two, most books don't have pictures in them. When that sad day finally arrived in my life, I was like, excuse me, books don't have pictures in them? Are you serious? That was a very dark day for me, y'all. But yeah, that's always been a really important thing to me, is that I'm like, why don't Big People books have pictures in them? Pictures are great. So that's why it has been a personal mission of mine that I do really enjoy including illustrations in my books. And when it either doesn't make sense for there to be pictures in my books, or the publisher advises me against it, I will create what I call companion art anyway, and I will just release it online and reference which book it's for. And if y'all go to any of my social media handles, and especially my website, and check out my art gallery, you're probably going to find some of the illustrations and character designs and things like that that I have done for my other stories. As I've mentioned in some of my other videos, I also did all of the illustrations for my book Geisha Hands. That was a huge undertaking. The illustrations alone took me 2 full years to complete all of the illustrations. Mind you, some of those illustrations took me over 30 hours to complete. Some of the more simple ones, especially the ones that were more like reference drawings of like, here's a food item or like here's a regular household item like an umbrella or whatever, those usually only took me about 3 to 5 hours, which I know sounds like a lot, but in terms of drawing, that's like nothing. But the really detailed, like full-blown like story scenes, those usually took me anywhere from like 20 to over 30 hours to complete from start to finish. And I always forget how many illustrations are in that thing, but I know that it's definitely over 40 illustrations are in that book. And on top of it, I did the cover art too. So it's a lot. And unfortunately, that is another cold, dark piece of reality I've had to accept as an adult, is that because I don't have that super awesome raw talent in my art the same way that I have it in my writing, it takes me a lot longer to create the illustrations that I do to be able to get them to the level of professionalism that I want them to be at. And because of that, I have to really pick and choose what books I'm going to illustrate and what illustrations I'm going to include, how many illustrations, all of that. And so that's why, unfortunately, the bulk of my books are not going to be illustrated, which makes me sad, but I can always create a handful of companion illustrations to go with it, and that makes me happy. And I do think that my readers enjoy seeing them. They always comment on them when they pop up on my social media feeds. I will continue to do that. However, the idea of making all of my books as in-depth design-wise as I did Geisha Hands is just so incredibly unrealistic, because that whole book from start to finish took 5 years from me just sitting down and writing it as a class assignment to it actually being published. Now, that's not counting the downtime in between when I wasn't actively working on it and it was just sitting on my computer doing nothing. That's not counting that time. I'm talking about 5 years of actual sitting down, researching, writing, editing, illustrating, and then waiting on Brian to do all of the layout stuff, me approving all the layout stuff, us then going through the whole process of getting it uploaded and approved and making it be a book, all that stuff. All of that took 5 years. And now, not all of my books are going to take 5 years. Geisha Hands was a huge in-depth process. It had a lot of research attached to it. There was just a lot that went into that book. Not all of my books are going to be that intense. But even so, the fact that the illustrations took me 2 full years to complete all of them, and we're talking, y'all, literally, I would sometimes spend over 12 hours a day just sitting parked in front of my computer just drawing like a crazy person, is a lot. Drawing has always been really important to me. Painting has always been really important to me. Just all of those art forms. And a big part of that is because I love to be able to create a full narrative. And what that means is that I love the idea of being able to immerse my readers as much as possible into this story that I have created. And to be able to do that visually, in addition to the traditional storytelling format, just brings so much joy and so much satisfaction to me personally and to my craft, which is also why Brian and I were such a perfect fit with creating all of the poetry collections and all of the art books together, in that that has the same exact goal, that it combines either photography or art or both along with written word in order to create this full narrative experience, which is just so incredibly important to me. It always has been. And amazingly enough, I found another person who believes in the same thing. Brian believes in the same things. It's just always been so much fun to be able to create all of these books. I mean, as y'all can see, I updated my background here with all of my amazing book covers that I have had published so far. It's crazy, y'all, how many books. And this is just my novels and my poetry collections. This doesn't even count the art books. There's too many books. It would just be way too cluttered, this background. I mean, it's already a little bit cluttered. I might change it again in the future, but for now it's all my work. But yeah, so some of y'all may be asking, well, okay, Geisha Hands is really the only novel so far that you've illustrated, with the exception of I did release several illustrations as companion pieces with Love of the Sea, and I also commissioned some pieces by an artist that is also a dear friend of mine, Rebecca Story, that were done for Tearing Down the Wall, Freya's Baby and Freya's Baby Shattered, and those were put out also as companion pieces. So the next big illustration project is actually my Crown Jewel project. Some of y'all may have seen me post about my fantasy YA series and that I'm currently working on book 1 of that fantasy YA series. One of the big reasons why I can't really talk about this series yet, and I can't really post any of the illustrations I've worked on yet, and this is really sad, y'all, is back in college, I actually wrote a children's book, and I did all of these beautiful watercolor illustrations to go with it, and the book was like 80% complete. I still had a few illustrations that I needed to do, and I needed to do a bit more with like the formatting aspect of stuff. And because it was so complete and because my teachers really liked it, they put it in this special gallery show as a part of the college in order to showcase my work, and someone stole my idea. So I still have the original story and I still have the original illustrations. Nobody actually physically stole my book. They stole the idea. I literally screamed the day that I saw it in Barnes & Noble, and I saw it was the same story idea, and even the characters look the same down to the colors that were used for the characters. I cried, y'all. I was so upset. I always heard people be like, oh, this has to be a secret, otherwise people steal it. And it's like, who's going to steal your stupid idea? Calm down. And then I finally had an idea stolen, and it was so upsetting and horrible, y'all. So that's why I keep this particular story idea under wraps, is because this is honestly one of the most important projects I will ever create in my entire life. And whoa, that is heavy and that is a lot. And I know y'all are probably thinking, wow, that's really traumatic. Are you okay? I mean, first of all, no, I'm not okay. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it is dramatic, but it is very much, this is a long time coming. This is something that I've been working on for as long as I can remember. And I'm finally making strides to finishing it so that I can send it off to hopefully be published. That's still going to be a while from now because I'm still working very hard on it. And I mean, if Geisha Hands was any indication, 2 years of illustrations, this book is definitely going to be at least 2 years of illustrations. And that's just book 1. There are 13 books in this book series, 12 books and 1 encyclopedia that I have all planned out. And technically all of them are written, is the crazy thing. It's just the manuscripts are really, really old and I have to rewrite all of them. It's a work in progress, y'all, but it is a joy, and I am so excited to be able to someday soon put it out in the world so that y'all can see this just incredible gem that I've been working on. But really, this series is the crux of why illustrating my stories is so important to me, is that I want to give my readers that magical experience, that full narrative. And the best way I can do that is by also including pictures. So that's just something that's always been really important to me, and I just love that in this day and age, especially with self-publishing, that you can break the rules, that you can incorporate things that traditional publishers would either shy away from or reject altogether. And a big part of that for me is that I know for a fact that even if I can't get a traditional publisher to take this book series, I can still make it be a book and put it out in the world, that I can still have my vision be realized, and I won't compromise and I won't take no for an answer on that. So it's just fantastic that I don't have to compromise and I don't have to take no for an answer on that. So that's why sometimes it might seem like I'm not really doing a whole lot, that there is a bit of radio silence in terms of, what are you working on? Are you working on anything? I've got a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, y'all, and drawings take a lot of time. And unfortunately, I can't share any of the in-progress images of the illustrations with y'all the way that I did with Geisha Hands, but I am confident that once the first book is published and out in the world, I will be able to share those works in progress with y'all going forward, and I'm just really thrilled to share that with y'all. Thank y'all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a like, and if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all, thank y'all so much. Take care. Bye-bye.